Hi, everyone. Shane McMurray from the Wedding Report. Thanks for joining me for this podcast video series that we're doing on wedding venues, catering services, bar service, and for rental companies. Today, I'm meeting with Fausto, and he's from Blue Elephant Events and Catering up in the Maine area. Fausto, thanks for joining me on the show, and welcome. Let me know about your business. Tell us about your business and yourself and your website, all that.
Thank you for having me. We moved up to Maine about 16 years ago. We opened when there was really nothing happening in our state. I mean, you couldn't even get a Chiavari chair. So we have been in business 16 years in our state. About 3 years ago, we bought a wedding magazine and we created a brokering program, which brokers venues for venue owners who don't want to do it. And so we basically hustle it for them. I am a big sort of promoter that the venue is your client. There is an actual client that has their event for 5 hours, but at the end of that event, you are standing inside of your client. And I'm trying to get wedding pros to understand that.
Gotcha. So is your core business the magazine, or are you guys doing mostly catering stuff, or just really a combination of the two?
90% weddings. And
Nice.
then the magazine is supplemental income, and it's given my partner back to publishing, because he used to work in publishing. So he's excited about that part. So he's the editor.
Plus, it gives you like an into the venues, right?
It does. It helps a lot, but I do stay away a little bit because I don't want people to think that we're trying to dominate too many things.
Yeah, gotcha. So tell me about the catering business. What do you guys do? And tell me a little bit about it.
So we're a full service catering company. We do weddings from anywhere from 50 people all the way to 3,000. We go all over the state. We work at 89 venues in our state. We have 5 exclusives, and we have 5 that we broker, that we have the option to work there, or anybody else can work there. And we do everything from soup to nuts, pretty much. Whatever the client wants, we bring in.
Gotcha. What's popular right now?
We're actually still staying with sit downs because they fit with the budget, believe it or not. And I know people tend to think that they're old fashioned, but they're really not, because you're working at venues that don't have kitchens, don't have an actual location. You have to build it from the ground up. And you have to create something that easily works at that location. So sit down is the best part, because you can actually sell it in a different way than saying, oh, it's very expensive. What you could say, hey, this can work within your budget, knowing that you actually have control, because everything down to the last potato is counted. So
I got
it's a really good money saver.
Yeah, because people think, I mean, I think most people think, oh, let's have a buffet type deal, right? And we'll see.
More money.
Yeah. Is it really?
Yeah, you have staff, you have equipment, you have linens for those tables. You have to bring in the tables, because if a venue doesn't have any of that, that's now rent. So ka-ching, 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 that all goes up. And now you have staff behind the buffet or stations, and then also on the floor, because you can't have all your people behind the station. And then who's pouring water? Who's getting what everybody needs? Because everybody needs something.
Okay.
So it really helps.
Makes sense to me, for sure. So tell me, what made you get into catering, and what's like the one thing that really gets you excited about doing catering? And
well, I got into planning first, and then I bought the catering company so that I would have control of it. So I'm not a control freak, but I'm adamant about time. When people say that chicken is dry, it's because someone has moved the timeline. And so the way I got into it is it sort of I fell into it because, I'll be honest, I dropped out of school, and these 2 women started my career in Philadelphia, and the rest is history. For me, it's fun to watch it all unfold. That first hour of cocktail hour, the first hour of dinner, watching everybody's face. I always stay back in the kitchen because I like to see the plates and scrape them so that I know that everybody ate. And then I have people all over the floor who are telling me what everybody is saying. So I am prepared when I walk out, when that last plate comes in. For instance, you're doing dinner for 800 people. It should take you 23 minutes to serve, so that it's 1 hour for dinner, and you're not wasting everybody's time down. You want dinner to be great. You want it to be wonderful. You want it to be good. But a disaster at a wedding is if you're sitting down for more than 2.5 hours eating dinner, or it's late coming out, you've lost the party.
Yeah.
That's why I love control.
I've been to a couple of those weddings, for sure. It's not fun. We're like, man, what's going on? Yeah. Yeah. Pretty cool. So tell me, like, so when people come, do you guys get most of your people that come to you directly, or do you guys get venues saying, hey, I've got a wedding, here's a couple, they need a catering. How does it typically work?
100% of my business comes and is driven by venues. I'm a venue-driven professional. So like I said, being on all these lists brings me the work directly. So my phone rings and it's literally 9 out of 10 venues. We do 10% corporate. So I'll put that off to the side, and 90% weddings.
Gotcha. So the venue books the wedding. You guys get the call from the venue. Hey, we've got a couple, they want to do this. Now, do you guys, how does that work? I mean, do you guys have to work with the couple after they get together, or I mean?
So when they fill out our contact form on our website, it'll say that they've picked their venue. And so what I do is I weed through the leads, and then I'll see everybody who's picked their venue. That is somebody who is actually getting married. The person who says I have not picked their venue, they sort of kind of come secondary. Not that they're not important, but I tend to go for the ones who have picked their venue, because that really is our bread and butter. And that's how we pay everybody who works for us, because we do have 10 full-time employees and 150 people that work part-time. Yeah. So it's a machine. So, but the venue literally feeds us. We'll get a call. For instance, somebody called for one of our venues in Portland, Maine, and they're like, I booked, it's 200 people. And then from there, I set up a phone consultation. And then I do like to meet all of my clients. I know if you're far away, when you come into town, then I do like to meet you. I do book a year in advance, and we do four events on a weekend. And then we cap it at that, so we don't overkill our staff. And especially with the way staffing is now, all we're doing is 4. We used to take more than that on a weekend, and we don't anymore.
Yeah, I would think that 4 is kind of pushing the limits as it is.
There's other caterers that do 7.
Really?
7 to 8. But it's a lot, because what happens is, if when you do 7, 2 of them might fall through the cracks and you'll get bad reviews. The way we operate everything is, I'm not a review person. I don't chase them. I don't want them. It's not that I don't need them. I want you to review me because you wanted to review me. If I ask you to review me, then that's not really a review.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's how I operate. And I love getting them in the mail, and then I immediately post them on our Facebook, our Instagram, and things like that.
Awesome. So, so you guys aren't there the whole time. You're just there pretty much for the reception in a fixed period of time?
I know for my team, if we're the production and we're doing all of it from the planning to the catering, we are there from 7 in the morning when the doors open at the venue.
Oh, okay.
Till the event ends.
Okay.
And my clients pay for the staff and everything for that entire time. I am a firm believer that a good staff and a big staff is a good party. When you cheap out on staff, and let's say you have 200 people and you bring in 7 people, there's going to be problems. Mm-hmm. We always have 15 to 22 people on staff. I'd rather pay them, because the client is paying to have them there, so that they can literally fulfill every wish that they have on that floor. And that's what works, because every review we get, the number one thing people talk about after they talk about food is the staff.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal to me.
Yeah, that is true. I can see that. Yeah. I mean, from the weddings I've been to, I can totally see that for sure.
And you can retain your staff. What I noticed early on in my career is that we were bringing people in when I worked for somebody else for a short amount of time. And then by the time they paid their taxes and you give up a Saturday, you're like $40. And you're like, well, that's not worth it. Mm-hmm. So the following Saturday, you couldn't get them to come on. So I give 16-hour shifts, plus there's a gratuity. So by the time you're done working for me, you're walking away with a $900 to almost $1,000 day.
Yeah,
because we pay really well.
Gotcha.
And I've retained my staff in the state of Maine. Will be 16 years this August. So 15 years. And my longest employee has been with me 33.
Wow. That's awesome.
She just retired, actually.
Yeah, but that says something about you as a company, right? Like, people want to work with you.
I'm easy to get along with. There's not much that rattles me. I might get angry like the first 5 minutes, but I'm over it. And that's my Spanish heritage. Like, we wail our hands up and we yell, and then we're like, are you okay?
Yeah. Yes, for sure. I hear you. So earlier we were talking about like buffet versus like sit down. Give me a difference like between like, so if I'm having a wedding for, I don't know, 100 people, I'm just going to throw it out there. I mean, what am I looking at for a buffet versus like a sit down dinner? And you could come up with.
So depending on what you're picking, obviously, if you're putting in lobster, because we're in Maine, that changes the price. But a buffet can run you anywhere from like 120 to 125. I can bring that sit down to like 98, 95, which makes it seem more reasonable. And you can make that happen. And then you can do a la carte stuff, like obviously coffee is a la carte, the bar is separate. So you're making your money in other areas, but that helps a lot when you break down their budget for them.
Gotcha.
So when you do a sit down, and what I explain to clients, when you create a sit down, you're creating the tone of the event. And I'm also buying you 3 hours of dance time, because if you've gotten a band, bands are 4 hours, and some of them are between $10,000 to $20,000 for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Now, if you're eating dinner for all that time, even if it's a station, a buffet, or a sit down, and you've wasted 2 hours and it's just background music, you're going to be pissed at somebody by the time they start. So a sit down, essentially, no matter how many people you have, if you've got a well-oiled machine, you're serving dinner between the 17 to 23 minutes.
Gotcha.
That means everybody's eating almost simultaneously together.
Gotcha.
So to me, it's a no-brainer.
That makes sense to me too. What is the process that you have to go through basically? So let's say I'm a venue, I contact you, you've met with the couple. What's that process look like for them after you have your initial meeting?
Well, all the venues, let's start off with all the venues that I'm on. I'm on their preferred list or their exclusive list.
Gotcha.
That's the first thing. And so once they book with me, we take them on a site tour. We set up how it's going to be set up. We've created their timeline. Their rentals are already in. So basically their file, like for 2023, all the clients for next year, their stuff's already done. So if anything were to happen to me, all you do is pick up the file, open it, and it's there. It's literally. And so what I tell clients today, because I know a lot of people get very tense and nervous that you're not responding to their email very quick. And so what I tell people, I said, here's the biggest thing that I want you to understand. I don't want you to stress out for a year over your wedding where nothing can be done until the week of. Can't cook your food, flowers aren't going to be made, rentals aren't going to be delivered, photographer's not shooting any pictures. Why are you stressing? If you've created your team and they're in place, you're golden. Worry about your dress, particularly women who don't. The week of their wedding, they never try it on. The day of the wedding, they're putting their dress on. Women retain water or lose water. So this is either up or tight.
Yeah.
So we always have to have pins ready. So those are the things I want you to worry about. I want you to enjoy the experience and the process.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So with the venues, they allow us a lot of leeway. And especially if you have done your job with the venue and they love you, no matter who you are, I'm not necessarily saying me, they will give you the keys to the kingdom and let you do your thing. And that's why it's really important to have the relationship with the venue, that understand that if the client is coming to you from the venue, then treat the venue almost like the client as well. Because when that client's done their event, you're left with the venue. So you are actually standing inside your actual client that is feeding you work.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So when you guys do events, you're not just doing the catering part. You can do all of it essentially. Is that?
Yeah. We're full-time event planners. And so in my company, I have 4 event planners that produce their own events under our umbrella.
Gotcha. And then that can include catering for food, staffing, bar service,
everything. Finding your rentals, and within my company too, at our offices, we have 2 rental companies that pay us to be there. So we have their showrooms so we have the showrooms. I don't need you going to the rental company. So you come to us to pick your china, your silverware, your glassware, all of it, tables, it's all set up. We have linen rooms. You can pick all of that stuff.
Oh, that's cool. That makes it very convenient and easy.
Mm-hmm. It's one-stop shopping.
Yeah, that's great. How long in advance, I mean, I know you just said 2023, but like how long in advance should people be booking, and what's happening today? What do you see going on there?
So I always tell everybody right now we work on 23, so that by January, February, March, and April of 23, I'm working on 24. So everybody who's booking right now for next year is literally hitting it right on time. This is really where the moment is. Mm-hmm. Then you'll get your stragglers in December that get married during, engaged during Christmas and Valentine's and all that. But the reality of it is by January, February, March, April, we are picking up 2024. That's what we're working on, because 2023 is already set in motion. But what I am seeing is that the recession will hit and their budgets are going to go lower than what they are now, because everybody keeps saying how, oh, everybody's got these wonderful budgets. I said, no, the industry isn't making a ton of money. We're still fixing 2020. So we won't see money the way we were making money before COVID hit until 25, 26, when the recession teeters off, because we're cyclical. So everything runs. Like if you remember 2008, which was a housing crisis, yes, it was devastating, but we're in that same boat.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's so true. Like you're totally booked right now, but you're just making up for 2020 and some of the events you already lost. And one of the big things I try to tell people is, look, make sure you have a plan for when this dies down a little bit, because it's going to die down. The pent up demand is going to slow down, and now we're going to be dealing with a recession, and so people's budgets are going to get a little bit constrained. Yeah, they have a lot of money right now because they had a lot of savings from COVID and all that stuff. I mean, there was people didn't spend money as much, right? So they have savings.
Exactly.
But guess what? It's going to come to an end, and you probably won't get. You're right. You probably will not get back to what you could call normal until 25, 26.
Exactly. We've seen 2 cancellations for next year already. And it was because they were over budget, and it's our neck of the woods. Some of our venues are upwards of 20,000, and our highest is 60,000.
I believe it.
That's just the walk in the door.
Yeah.
So, when you look at the knot, and the knot says a certain price, you have to sort of kind of use it on a scale sometimes, because it's not always the same thing. Because some venues are really expensive, and then you have to break the news to them that unfortunately there's no such thing as a $30 menu.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is all the decisions you make about your wedding have impact on how much you're going to spend, right? Where you're getting married, even the color you choose for your wedding, right, is actually determines how much you actually are going to end up spending. People that say, people that go like, oh, I want a champagne style colored with golds and whatever. I mean, they're going to.
Now you got to rent all of that stuff and find the company that actually has it. And it's going to cost money if it's got to be shipped.
Price goes up for sure.
So.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. And so you're seeing, like you've already, do you see people now booking for 2024?
I have 2 inquiries that we just sent out proposals for 24.
Wow. That's incredible. How do you deal with because inflation is pretty high right now.
Well, what we do is
come down, but how do you deal with things that are going higher when you
with fish? We put it at market value, so we'll put market price or something like that, or whatever the market price. So we leave that open ended, but pretty much we know what the prices are, and we've already fixated on put our numbers on that. And for instance, I mean, people think that catering is going to make you a ton of money. You're looking at 11%. I mean, it's not like
you're lucky, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we know what, potatoes are going to cost and things like that. So that's already done. And if you're doing it right, if you're in between the $100 and $120, you're going to be perfect. But we price everything out separately, so you can see where every dime is going. So here's your food cost. Here is what the cost for the staff that are going to be working that event. And that money might look like a lot to you, but that is also covering them working the week and somebody answering the phone and the emails that go out. So that's in there, the 20%, 18%, whatever the service charges are. And then we also break down if you want to hire our company as the planner, that is a separate fee.
I got you. And how are you dealing with cost stuff that's happening today, because cost rising, transportation, all that stuff, versus someone you booked last year, and now all of a sudden, your costs are 10, 20% higher?
I honor your contract. So if you sign, so I have 10 jobs still that are left over from 2019. They booked us. We just did one this past weekend, and he asked us to take the gratuity off. And I did, because he was right. It was not on his bill in 2019. We just started adding that in after 2020 to retain staff, and I honored it. And then I looked at everything back. I said, I'm never going to charge somebody if it's been charged to me. That is a price that I'm doing right now for business. I learned from that, and now moving forward, things went up. But anybody who has booked and signed a contract with me, that is honored.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you can't do anything about that part, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. I was just curious how you were dealing with the additional overhead cost.
It's fascinating to me, because I watch all the purveyors charging for fuel charge, and I find that really annoying, because the same delivery guy who's delivering meat to me is delivering meat to 4 other restaurants around me. And I'm going, you're making $6 off of each of these places, times that by 50 deliveries, you are gouging.
Yeah, totally gouging, totally gouging. I'm with you on that. Like, I could see, okay, look, you could charge me a little bit more, right? But don't, I mean,
Yeah.
spread it out, right? Don't just go like, oh, you got to get you. I get you. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
And like I said, like a lot of clients will say, well, there's 20% on the bill. I said, look, I have to explain it to you. I said, without that 20%, we're not going to retain people to work. Yep. I said, that is keeping them here. I said, that is literally keeping the second job or third job for some of them. And when you explain it to them, it's a good thing. I mean, you know, I tell them, I said, yeah, but you're also spending for 15 vendor meals, and you don't have a problem spending full price for 15 vendor meals, but you're complaining about the gratuity, but you never talk about feeding my staff. So this helps them. Yeah, and we can't keep any of it. I have to, legally, it's all theirs. And in the state of Maine, you can do a tip credit. I refuse to do that. They've earned it. It's their money. I won't do a tip credit.
I agree with you. Like, I always like to, I don't know, personally, I worked in the service industry for a while. And I know that these guys live on their tips. Mm-hmm. So I always like to, personally, I always like to tip well, more than normal.
Me too.
Yeah. Hey, last question, Fausto. Yep. So if you had to go back 3 or 5 years from today, what would you tell yourself?
Not to sweat it so much. Because I take everything on. And I stay up late at night because I worry about payroll, taxes, and everything that comes with owning a business. And when COVID hit, I took a step back and I started to enjoy my life that I built for myself. I actually bought myself a new car because I'm so cheap. So not to sweat it. I can't take it with me. I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good one. Not to sweat the small. I mean, a lot of people say that, not to sweat the small, you know, even the small things or anything in general, right? Like, I know I do the same thing personally. I like overthink things. I stay up late, you know, your mind's just twirling around and you're like, and then the next day everything's fine. And you're like, what the heck did I just do? Right.
At the end of the day, it's somebody's special day, and I get that, but nobody has died. And I always have this anxiety, and I don't have it anymore since 2020. I literally, it's just sort of I just said, that's it, I'm done. And, you know, looking back, it's almost 2.5 years. So.
Wow. I know, right? Can you believe it's almost 2.5 years? Insane. Hey, Fausto, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you later.
Thank you.